Strange apartment. This happened quite recently, about a year or two ago. At that time I lived with my parents in a three-room apartment. I've always loved animals, but for some reason they didn't stay with me for a long time. They either died or disappeared for unknown reasons. There were many times that an animal got sick, and in a deplorable state we gave it into good hands, and after just a week the animal revived, became healthy and lived for many more years. At first, I blamed everything on my sloppiness and inability to care for, but one day, when I got myself a dog, I looked at it from the other side. My dog was constantly looking at something, as if she saw something that we didn't see. She was barking at something in the doorway and growling. I explained this to myself by the fact that she could probably hear the neighbors behind the wall. One night I was sleeping in my room and I heard the wires from the laptop, which are scattered throughout the apartment, began to move. This usually happens when someone from the household clings to them with their feet. And so I called my mom, but no one answered me. Then I called my brother. The answer to me was someone's breathing, which did not look like a human. I thought my brother was joking with me and shouted at him to stop. There was no response, so I decided to go there and see who was messing around. When I went out into the corridor, I didn't see anyone. I went into my mother's room. She was asleep. I followed my brother to his room, and he's already having his 10th dream there, and then I felt uneasy. The dog, in turn, howled in the room, which was not like her. After some time, I spent the night at home alone. I watched a movie and went to bed. I didn't have time to turn off the lights everywhere and get under the covers. As someone knocked on the bathroom door 3 times, probably anyone knows exactly how. A knock sounds on every door in his apartment. I became quiet. There was a deathly silence. I started to reassure myself that it seemed to me. But then there were 3 more knocks on the front door. I jumped out of bed, picked up the phone, called my boyfriend and started explaining to him what had happened. He told me not to panic and calm down, reminded me that I definitely locked the door when he left me that evening. He advised me to go and look through the peephole. I did so. I went down the corridor to the front door, simultaneously turning on the lights everywhere. When I got to the door, the lights in the whole apartment went out. I was just stunned with shock. In the peephole it was visible that the light was on the lower floor. I started crying into the phone and begging the guy to come to me. He said he was on his way out, but before he could finish the last sentence, my phone went dead. He could not discharge himself in any way, since he had been charging all day. I pulled myself together and resolutely went to the pantry for candles. She lit a candle, took it in her hand and went to her room and began to pray that everything would stop. And then I heard footsteps in the apartment right down the corridor, slow at first. And then someone seemed to come running into my room and stopped beside me. And then I just started vomiting out of fear. I ran to the toilet and threw up. Then I heard the doorbell ring. I was very surprised, because I thought that if there is no light in the house, then the intercom should not work. I didn't have time to run to the door, when suddenly there was another knock on the front door. I froze, but then I heard my boyfriend's voice outside the door, with a sigh of relief. I opened the door. At the same moment, the lights turned on throughout the apartment, and I heard a beep in the room when the phone turned on. The guy also saw the lights turn on all over the apartment and looked at my face, pale as whitewash. We sat in the kitchen all night. After this incident, all the household constantly began to hear someone walking around the apartment. Dishes were breaking, Wires were flying through there by themselves. Relations in the family became tense. We were always fighting. Soon we decided to move out of this apartment. They sold it. New residents moved there. Literally a month later, the tenants called us early in the morning and cheerfully asked if we had noticed anything unusual in the apartment. We answered in the negative with a shudder, and they told us that at night they heard the cry and crying of their baby daughter. We ran into the room, and there the child was hanging in there, as if someone invisible was holding her by the throat. When the adults entered, the hand abruptly released the grip, and the girl fell to the floor and suffered a concussion. What it was, and how these people are now, I do not know. But I am very glad that we left this apartment in a timely manner.